I love the nightlife. I've got to boogie on the disco round. Yeah. I was holding my school books in both arms, so I had to open the front door with my foot. And I kicked it so hard that I almost hit my mother, who was standing behind it. Whoa, I said. Child, if you don't stop all that singing and dancing and pay attention, you almost hit me. I laughed it off, and I started for the stairs to my room. I made it to the second step when I heard, "Girl, you're just stupid, and you'll never amount to anything." Suddenly, my dreams of singing and dancing on Broadway were crushed. Here I was, this quiet, shy, withdrawn, timid 16-year-old. But when I heard music, I came alive. I turned to look at my mother, and she stood there with her arms across her chest, peering at me with these dark eyes that dared me to say something. And I froze like a possum. My mother was strong, independent, and sharp-tongued, but underneath, she was kind, caring, and generous. I knew it, but I rarely saw it. I was stunned. Her words burned in my chest. I stopped breathing. It was like I was underwater, struggling to get to the surface for air. I let out a breath. I could feel sweat rolling down my back. I felt nauseous, lightheaded, and dizzy. I leaned on the stair rail for support, and I slowly turned around and made myself upstairs to my room. When I got in my room, I dropped my books on the floor, and they fell open. I looked at them, and I thought, what's the point? And I kicked them closed. I went over and picked up Hammy, my emotional support hamster, and I held him. I looked down at him and said, "Hammy, you're my only friend." I put him back in his cage, sat on my bed, and I started to write in my journal. I didn't go back downstairs that night. I got up the next morning and went downstairs just in time to catch the school bus. I stepped off the bus, and I just stood and stared at the school. I looked at every brick, every window, and I read the words, Pineville High School. The bell rang, and I walked in for the last time. That night, I called my mother and father in the living room, and I told them that I wanted to quit school. My dad was in the Navy and spent months out at sea. He happened to be home on leave. He was a quiet man. He looked over at my mother as if to say, "What is going on?" She just shrugged. And then he looked at me and he said, "You know, I was drafted into the Navy, so I didn't finish high school, but I did get my GED." He said, "Are you sure this is what you want to do?" And I said, looking at my mother, my stomach in knots, her words echoed in my head. "Girl, you're just stupid, and you'll never amount to anything." And I said, "Yes." "Well, what are you going to do? You have to get a job." I said, "I can work at the country club, cleaning off the tables with my brother." My dad said, "Well, that could work." They signed me out of school. And within a week, I was working at the country club, cleaning tables alongside my brother. It was a horrible job. Having to pick up plates with food that was chewed up and spit out with my bare hands was far from Broadway. Within a week, my brother looked at me and told me he was quitting and going in the Army. I said, "Oh, you will not leave me here." Then I got lucky. My brother's recruiter came to the house to get some paperwork signed. And he told my parents that the Army was accepting females in without a high school diploma. and the window would only be open for 30 days. The stipulation was that you had to get your GED within the first year. I said, when can I go? I joined the Army, put on those green fatigues, and I left that shy girl at home. My first duty station was in Germany. I was so excited. Here I was, this 17-year-old with a guaranteed job, more money than I could imagine making, and I got to travel. While I was in Germany, I did get my GED. Stationed back in the States, I discovered this new form of fitness called aerobics. It was a nonstop calisthenic cardio dance workout. I realized that I could move and group with this workout. I took a few classes and then I became an instructor. I got my music back, I got to dance, and I can sing when I wanted. During my second tour in Germany, my parents came to visit, hanging on the wall in the foyer for all to see. I proudly displayed my framed GED. My dad looked at it and looked at me and said, good job. My mother looked at me and said, I didn't think you were going to make it. I smiled and thought, oh, I'm not finished yet. I earned my college degree, continued to travel with the Army, and retired after 24 years of service. Here I was, 45 years old, sitting at my mother's table, singing. She looked over at me and said, Lorrie Renee, you have a beautiful voice and you should sing. I may not have gotten Broadway, but I got something better. I experienced the world. I still had my music, my dancing, and my singing. I love the nightlife. I've got to boogie on the disco ride. Yeah, 'cause there ain't no mountain high enough. Broadway, I'm not finished with you yet.